So, what should we conclude? Is it too early? Are we going to see more conspiracies, or are we going to get really a clearer picture?
You know, I think that the mainstream media is trying to call this, before they even read this stuff, that it's not, that it's not important, etc. I think there are a lot of very interesting things in here, but you have to be like a gold miner and you have to weed through this stuff that is not really important. And that takes a long time.
Mm.
All right. But let me give you one thing that I think is interesting. When Oswald went to Mexico, supposedly went to Mexico, James Angleton, the chief of the counterintelligence of the CIA, said that he had been in close association with a guy named Valery Kostakov, who was a KGB agent masquerading as a diplomat. And Angleton put that story out almost the day of the assassination. And he said that Kostakov was an agent of Department 13, which deals with, among other things, assassinations. So, of course, everybody then thought, well, they jumped on this thing that maybe Oswald was working for the Russians, when he shot Kennedy. Well, one of the declassified memos from 1971, a CIA memo, admits, wait a minute, we don't know if Kostakov worked for Department 13. That's an assumption that's not warranted by the evidence. So when I saw this jumped out at me and made me think, was Angleton trying to frame Oswald by jumping to that conclusion within 24 hours of JFK's murder? And if so, if that's true, what does that say about James Angleton? Now, short short summary. James Angleton was, of course, the chief of counterintelligence for the Central Intelligence Agency for about 15 or 20 years on the day of the assassination. He was a rabid anti-communist, okay, who a lot of people think had almost gone off the edge, with his mania about the Soviet Union. So anybody like Kennedy, who was trying to forge a rapprochement with Fidel Castro in Cuba and a detente with Nikita Khrushchev in Russia, that would look very bad to somebody like Jim Angleton. So that's something that I think is very interesting that came out the first day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Just before we wrap up, how important is it that these files have been made public? We've been waiting decades for them. There has been so many theories around the truth. How important is it for you?
I think that ultimately, when they're all out there, and I think there's going to be a third batch today, and everything has gone through and sifted, I think we're going to have a more accurate picture of what really happened to Kennedy. I really do believe that, you know, and I think, as they say, there'll be a much more accurate mosaic of what happened on November 22nd, 1963. I think we're getting a little bit of that slowly but surely, even within 24 hours of them being declassified. And let me say one last thing. I've only seen one document that has any redactions in it at all. So I think Tulsi Gabbard, the head of the DNI, okay, and Donald Trump deserve a lot of credit for
Mm.
fighting through the FBI, the CIA, State Department, NSA, etc., to get these out there in the purest form. I've really never seen anything like this before. The lack of redactions in these documents.
Absolutely. They deserve all the credit for this. James Di Eugenio, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, good night.